get to hear anyone.
Testing.
And
On my work phone or myself? Normally you call myself.
you know, we approve a bill list for $1,642,700. What did that go for? It'd be nice to have a discussion about that. But I talked to Tom, and he says, hey, I already got a copy of the agenda before Thursday.
Yes, so they're in their building. Yeah, so
Hey, Danny, are you able to hear us here in City Hall?
This is Matt, and I can hear you.
Thanks, Matt.
Why is he not here?
yeah. So was the other guy?
Yes, I can, Heather. Thank you.
Thanks, Danny.
How he didn't know the things. He thought I should do this.
No, yeah, keep it up.
Sorry about that. Different stuff. The mayor, I've never seen the other than start using these weighty the mayor. And I noticed in 3 cases where a mayor or a chairman had tried to bring back 2 or 3 guys out of order. She had them arrested. They all filed suit and won $150,000. I texted him, told him I could use the invocation for $250,000.
I'm still behind you, don't worry.
Good luck shutting me out.
Hi there. Guess you're gonna help out with our crew here. Is that right?
Well, we got the Jeep coach and they're outside of town. There's I guess, east on the east side of the county. They'll all be staying here. That's 3 days. And they're expecting like 5 or 6 other teams.
These folks, yeah. Never see the ground.
Oh, yeah.
Well, this is getting kind of, this is 2 weeks in a row. Nichols or Thompson. Last meeting.
What's up, ladies? How's it going? Hey, are you okay? Big loss yesterday. It's like being a Badgers fan. It's hard to cry. You do. With the backup quarterback. Big game this weekend. Yeah. Ooh, that would be a big game.
That's what I just asked you. Okay.
Hang in there, buddy. The Chiefs get all the calls. Oh, yeah. He's always makes you so better. Hey, Russ. Good to see you. Well, we're trying. We're trying. What's up, buddy? How you doing? You got like, what, a 30-minute presentation for us? Okay. Brought some soda, I'm ready.
Okay, it's witching time. Good evening. Welcome to the City Council Chambers here in Marshalltown at 10 West State Street. Today's date is September 23, 2024. The time's 5:30 p.m. We are called to order for a regularly scheduled City Council meeting with those able to join us in the pledge. Stand up. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Fonseca.
Here.
Kell.
Here.
Lottie
Here.
Mitchell.
Here.
Nichols. Schneider.
Here.
Thompson.
Here.
Very good. We have a quorum, and that takes us to public comment time. Members of the public may make comments on any item that was not on the agenda at this time. Approach the mic, state your name and address, and limit your comments to 3 minutes unless I authorize longer. Direct your comments to the mayor and council as a whole, and we are not to engage in discussion or debate on these items raised by the public, and no action may be taken on those items in order that we may comply with the open meetings laws. Microphone is open.
My name is Linda Clark, 306 South 2nd Avenue. I appreciate the time and I appreciate all the council people that are here in attendance in person. I really appreciate that. It's not been on the agenda, but I would like to discuss the agenda. It seems like it's getting more lengthy all the time in a group of passing the resolutions. And then you go down. It might just be my brain not working. But it's confusing the way the agenda is being done. It looks like there's 10 items on the agenda that you're going to pass all in a bulk, and then it goes down to a few more things, and then it's more resolutions. I'd like to have that just a little clearer, if that could be done. I got online, and I was looking at the things that were coming up for discussion, and I have something else I will speak about later when it comes to discussion. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Doris Kinnick, 2020 Catalina Place. I'm hearing a lot of people concerned about what's going to happen on Main Street when it does close. Use of the back doors. What if there is no back door? What happens to the business then? Just a lot of uncertainty. One of my coworkers is concerned about the bathrooms and what's going to happen about that. So just a lot of questions. Everyone's looking at the progress of State Street and just kind of a little bit concerned about what's going to be happening on Main. Thank you.
Thank you. The microphone's still open.
Hello, Jim Shaw, 522 North 2nd Street. This one I wasn't planning on, but I agree with her about the agenda, the consent agenda. There's all kinds of stuff that gets passed in there that I don't necessarily approve of. I've been doing this for at least a year, relating some horrific attacks by dogs, mostly pit bulls. My initial goal was to get pit bulls banned in Marshtown. What seemed like a good idea at the time has proven very difficult. Even after showing the council pictures of victims being mauled around the United States, a lot of them small children, my city council has decided not to take any action concerning pit bulls. There have been several attacks in Marshalltown with at least 40 dog bites last year. One female mail carrier had deep bites in her hand, and another victim lost a finger. One of the goals that I've had that has been successful, I believe, is my complaint about loose dogs. It's gotten some attention, and I've seen an increase in dog at large tickets. Hopefully those numbers will continue to go down because of the enforcement. However, I saw a loose pit bull Friday and called the police. The dog did not look vicious. Matter of fact, it looked quite old and in distress. A couple of minutes later, a man came out and the dog went to him. I asked him if the dog was his. Yes, it was. Did he know we had a leash law? So? I says, I called the police. So? Maybe our dog leash fine laws needs to be a little higher so we don't have such a cavalier attitude about a person's loose dog. One remaining concern I have is the number of pit bulls at the Animal Rescue League and what will happen to them. I don't know how many are currently at the Animal Rescue League. I could check, but I'm pretty sure I'm not welcome out there anymore. I'd like the city to come up with some way to stop their adoption to Marshalltown citizens. I mentioned this some time ago to Councilman Lottiehoff, and he told me that our ARL has the capability to adopt dogs out nationwide. This is what I'd like to see happen to the pit bulls. We do not need these dogs in Marshalltown. I think this is one option that the Marshalltown needs to adopt when dealing with the Animal Rescue League and pit bull types. This is personal to me as I have 10 pit bulls within a 5-block radius of where I live, none of them friendly. We need to exhaust all efforts to adopt them outside of our town. A couple of people have asked how long I'm going to keep doing this. My response, I'm retired and have nothing but time. But I do not want to waste my time, and that seems to be what I'm doing. I'm not giving up my campaign on these dangerous dogs, especially if we have another incident in Marshalltown. But at my discretion, I will not be speaking about them at every council meeting as I have in the past. But I will maintain my right to do so at any time, exercising my right of freedom of speech.
Thank you. Microphone is still open.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for your time. My name is Dave Grieve, 2327 South 5th Avenue, Ward 4, and 128 East Main Street, Ward 1. Doodah's Diner official press release. It is with great sadness and a heavy heart to report that Doodah's Diner is closed indefinitely. Both co-managers of Doodah's were affected by a medical event. Unfortunately, with no medical return to work time frame provided by medical authorities, the continuing rising cost of supplies, utility prices, and an investment in worn-out diner were too much for the market to bear. To our loyal, regular customers, we apologize for any inconvenience this may cause you. Your support through the ownership change was extraordinary. Doodah's tried their best to provide a decent food value service for many of our fixed-income customers in Marshalltown. In the spirit of trying to serve the working class and functional poor, Doodah's has donated all remaining food supplies to the Salvation Army to help feed the homeless in Marshalltown. If you'd like to support Jack and Samara with their medical issues, a GoFundMe page has been set up and links can be found on various Facebook pages for Marshalltown. Thank you, Marshalltown, for doing your best to support Doodah's. Bad things happen to good people. Some dreams don't come true. Respectively, Doodah's management, the dishwasher. With my remaining time, I'd like to thank Lonnie Hoagland and his family's extraordinary efforts with their time, talent, and treasure to build the coolest park in the north side of town. You exemplify the kind of citizen I hope to foster at the Oddfellows Hall. You and so many others have met here. Give freely to those they don't know the true definition of an oddfellow. You are an inspiration to us all, Mr. Hoagland. May the Lord bless and keep you all the days of your life. With that, I yield back the remainder of my time.
Thank you, Dave.
Hi, Sarah Rosenblum, Library Director. I just want to thank all the residents who came out and to our Friends of the Library annual book sale and our volunteers. I see one of them in the room. We had a really successful event raising funds for the Friends, which in turn comes back to the library to buy new materials. We still have free books in the lobby, so please come down and pick some up. But we really did have a great turnout Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, and today. And again, I want to thank all of our volunteers that really put in all that time to help us do the sale.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Deb Millizer, Director of the Marshalltown Central Business District, and my comments are provided to the council, but also with the audience at large. I want to share that the MCBD, and I also know that the city of Marshalltown are hearing people's concerns about Main Street reconstruction, and we are listening and we are planning, and we're still in the planning phases. So I want them to know that it's not falling on deaf ears, that we are hearing that and that we're coming up with plans. It's going to be very important that as we move forward for reconstruction of Main Street, that it is a commitment and a work and a collaboration between lots of parties involved, not only the Marshalltown Central Business District, the City of Marshalltown, the Chamber of Commerce, and the businesses downtown, but it's also going to take the community. It is going to be a process. There will be some loss of business. That just happens with, I don't mean to minimize, but that is something that happens when you do reconstruction, but it's going to be worth it in the end. We're all creative people. We can come up with ways to make things work. We're going to have to get past the psychological boundaries of coming into construction zones. Sidewalks aren't being planned to be closed down right as they start to work on reconstruction. There are plans and things being worked out, and we are being very mindful of that. I've also applied to Main Street, Iowa for their Thriving Through revitalization programming, where they have helped other communities go through this. So we are working on things on the backside that aren't so visible to the community, but we are working on those things and we are hearing the concerns. So I just wanted to bring that up because I'm continuing to hear it, and I want people to know that we are hearing it and we are working on things.
Thank you, Deb.
Lonnie Hoagland, 1408 East Main. I think you should seriously look into being able to communicate with the people as they talk like this. I didn't know what Dave was going to talk about and throw me into his good thing for Lonnie, but that's a terrible thing for Marshalltown that his restaurant's going to close. It's a terrible thing for the community. It's just a shame you guys couldn't vocally say after he was done speaking, we're deeply sorry for your loss. It's just a shame it can't communicate back and forth. Have a little bit of communication somehow. That needs fixed. I don't want an argument with a debate with people, but you guys got to be able to communicate. And I appreciate deeply his kind words on the park. I'm coming. I've got some more ideas that are going to be implemented, and it is really neat. I've had so much behind-the-scene feedback that it is crazy. I think it's because it's a personal thing. Don't people realize it's your taxpayer money at a Anson Park? It's still your money. People are taking care of that little park. I've got people calling me saying, hey, your park bench is missing. No, I took it off of there and I took it to the shop and I'm working on it. People are looking out for it. They've got like their own, I call it a community park. They care. Why don't they care about Anson Park? I don't know. But please work on it so people can communicate. Not get in an argument, but talk with you guys a little bit, and you can communicate back and tell that gentleman you're sorry to deep of your heart that his restaurant had to close.
Thanks, Lonnie. Microphone's still open. Okay, that takes us to the point where we actually can talk up here. Are we going to do the years of service first, though?
Sarah wanted to say a few words.
Okay, Sarah?
Sarah Rosenblum, Marshalltown Public Library Director. Katie Kennedy, who we're recognizing for 5 years of service, could not be here tonight because Katie is, like many of our city workers, on the go. She works for the library part-time. She is an adjunct faculty at the community college. And Katie is also a published author. And when I say published author, and we know many people have written a book, Katie's published, and her books are in libraries all over the country. And I think it's very timely that two of Katie's books, and I've actually given them to people, The Constitution, A Guide to the Document That Shapes Our Nation, and The Presidents, A Guide to the Leaders Who Shaped Our Nation. And I've actually used these books. They are for middle school, but I think they benefit anybody because it really takes history and it takes government and makes it to readable, and many of us know the Constitution. Well, you would know better than any, Mr. Mayor. But like I said, we're very proud to have Katie on our team. And Katie also speaks Russian, has worked with Mike and some of our Ukrainian families. So like many of our community members, she gives 110%. And so we're very lucky to have Katie as part of our team at the library.
Thank you. Okay, we'd also like to recognize Daniel Oswald, firefighter for 15 years, Carrie Larson, fellow firefighter for 15 years. We keep that force busy. Every year we get the report from our acting chief about how many calls they make on a given week and given month, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's got them working tonight. So thank you for those 15 years of service to both of them. Okay, now it's time for mayor, council, and administrator comments. I need to get you to switch those around because I always like to go last. Tonight, let me go first. I got to meet Katie today, in fact, and I know she's commissioned to do an update, waiting to see what happens in this next election. So I can't wait to see what happens in the election and what her next book will be about. I didn't know that she spoke Russian, though. That was pretty cool. And Lonnie, David, no question about it. We don't like to see any businesses go out here. Wax Ecstatic was another one. One of my favorites, West End Perk. I was getting an everything salad there every single week. Last week was their last week. We're trying to develop things as best we can. There are investors that are looking in town, but it's not always easy to keep a business going. And we know from good friends at restaurant businesses that you're married to those places and you have to be there. And if you get ill, it's really tough. So we certainly, I know I speak for the rest of the people up here and for the city that we appreciate your investment in this town, and we are sorry that it's not going to be a dining place for us anymore. I'd also like to commend the library and the Arts and Alliance folks and everybody who showed up downtown yesterday. That was a fun cultural event, all sorts of different cultures represented, music, dancing, food, things for the kids. It was fun to have the open yard at the north side of the courthouse open. And there are people working on, with the county and city, working on what that will look like in another year or two. But it was a good example of how having a festival at that site worked. Had the band shell out there. We only had to close one block off. People don't have trouble getting their parking, and it was just fun to see the people who were there. Lots of volunteers, and I'll bet that one grows too. It's just fun to have. All right, I've talked enough. Anybody up here like to address the crowd?
I'll say something, Your Honor.
Okay.
I was able to speak at the Widow and Widowers group at Legends a week ago last Monday, and it was a really nice group, and I gave them a nice update about the city. One comment I'd heard there, and I keep hearing when I run into people, is the situation on the westmost lake there along Moorhubs Boulevard. And I don't know if there's anything we do about it this year. I'm not asking anybody to do it, but I do think I want to make that a point that we talk about maintenance of our outdoor recreation assets during strategic planning. So I just want people to know who keep asking me or haven't asked me yet. Weather was a challenge this year. I know there was attempts at treating it, but I don't think anything can be done this year, but let's try to do better next year as a city to set the example that we'd like to see of our citizens.
Okay. I do know there was a second treatment. It takes a while. Weather was a problem, and also a lot of silt has built up because we do have developments going on, and it's kind of hard to contain that. So it was kind of like the perfect storm.
Yeah. And I know we do have dredging on our capital plan in the future too, but that's not for a couple of years. So I just know a lot of people have been asking, so just figured I'd put it out here in the public forum.
Trust me, the mayor's gotten a fair number of calls about it, and I go to the Hy-Vee store really late at night to avoid any more. Yeah. Anyone else? All right, let's see if anybody wants to move to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve, Your Honor.
Second.
Roll call.
Mitchell? Schneider?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Fonseca? Yes. Kell?
Yes.
Lottie
Yes.
That carried, and we don't have to read them to respond, because now we do get to talk about things. It saves us about 30, 40, sometimes maybe 60 minutes to have things done by the consent agenda. It usually comes out by noon on Thursday. Almost everything on there has a memo that you can read, so if you want to see what's coming up, you actually can. If you have any questions about anything that's on the consent agenda, you have the power to call the mayor or clerk, the appropriate department heads to ask questions about it. So by the time you come here on a Monday night at 5:30, you should have answers to your questions. And frankly, if something should be pulled off the consent agenda, you can contact the counselor or the mayor, and it's likely to be pulled off and discussed separately. But that did save us time, and I think I saved us about, 3 to 5 minutes by not making you read those anymore. All right, on to reports is our next one, right?
Yes, we have the impact quarterly update report.
Good evening, David Hicks, YSS of Marshall County, here to talk about impact the Marshalltown Police and Community Team. 4 years ago at this very meeting, impact was approved for funding, and I want to thank Gary Thompson for getting that started. So we've come a long way, so appreciate Gary and City Council support as well. So last week was National Co-Responder Week, so we honored Tiffany Beadle and Susie Reed. Those are our two impact advocates. Want to go over some surveys and some data with you this evening. So every August we do a survey with the Marshalltown Police Department to see how we're doing as a co-responder. This year, thanks to Chief Tupper's push, we had a 82% response rate from the police department, and we ask the same questions year after year so we can kind of gauge our improvement. So 75% of law enforcement reported that impact's involvement likely prevented an escalating situation from becoming worse. 96% reported that impact reduced their time spent on non-criminal situations. We asked, has impact's involvement increased your resources to provide assistance to the public? 100% of the officers said yes. Has impact's role and engagement been a benefit to you in your capacity at the Marshalltown Police Department? 100% of the officers said yes. And then, do you support impact's continued partnership with the Marshalltown Police Department? 100% of the officers said yes. Continued support, great partnership of this unique opportunity that we have to serve the citizens of Marshalltown. Looking at data from January through August, so 8 months, we have responded to 187 total calls for service, which then involved 445 people. 39% of those were under the age of 18. So 175 out of 444 total contacts were under the age of 18, 39%. Most frequent call, homelessness, 31%. So out of our 187 calls, 58 involved somebody who is homeless. After that, domestic violence with 36 out of 187, that's 19%. Mental health, 16%. And then juvenile issues, 17%. So we are seeing increased numbers, but yet we're tackling issues that are really, really complex and hard to resolve. 96% of the officers were able to return to the field after that initial response. So it's great when 96% of your resources can go out to practice public safety and law enforcement. 91% of those we engaged with followed our recommendations and agreed to participate in case management. So in addition to our calls for service, we do follow-ups, and that's really the secret ingredient to impact. So we've provided 889 total follow-ups that involve 1,721 people. Of those follow-ups, 33% involve a mental health situation, 32% involved homelessness. So we continue to track those follow-up cases pretty intensely. So between mental health and homelessness, 65% of our follow-ups involve those two. I think my microphone on my back.
Sorry.
Okay, I'm back.
I got to lose some weight because
All right.
the button's right there.
So hopefully, you're aware that Impact is currently involved in a significant research study right now. Iowa's Criminal and Juvenile Justice Planning Commission is doing a deep dive into what Impact is all about. Perhaps some of you have been interviewed for that. They want to disseminate what they find with Impact to federal folks, state folks, and even local Central Iowa folks to determine if this front-end diversion strategy is making impact, pun intended. So taking a deep dive into our data, doing surveys, doing research, meeting with the folks that are involved with impact. So we hope that we'll have their findings available late fall, early winter. So it's been unique to be part of a research study, but those at that criminal justice at the state level realize impact is onto something good, and we are probably outpacing other co-responder programs nationally in terms of the partnership, the data we're getting, and the impact we're making, again, pun intended. So as we kind of look at funding moving forward, we continue to be funded under ARPA. Chief Tupper and myself have written numerous grants that have kind of backfilled to push ARPA dollars out. But based on our current spending, as we have this past year, the current funds will expire. We will have expensed everything in December of 2025. So a year from now, we're going to be looking at some issues of what impact will look like, if there will be an impact, or how we can work to continue to make impact as worthwhile as we have been over the last 4 years. So thank you for your time. Would be happy to answer any questions, entertain any of your thoughts.
Anybody have any questions or comments up here? I was there. I was there the other morning when you had the coffee with the co-responders, and I see Sue Cahill's here at the meeting tonight. I still miss you sitting up here, Sue. Carrie Warmy was there. She's going in an election for the State House too. So it's got the Capitol's attention, this program does, and I know Chief Tupper and you are getting calls from people around the country, not just out in the state here, about how this is doing so well and what can they do to emulate it.
Yeah, we try not to give away our secrets. We have invented this really from the ground up, and we've utilized local Marshalltown data, resources. We've built this around the city. This is something that we didn't take and bring here. We've built this from the ground up. So something that Marshalltown can be very proud of. And once the researcher is done with her findings, then I think we'll have probably a public event where people can come and listen to what she has to say and hear about our great work, great partnership.
I know the ask was too. Right now the hours cut off when and they start when?
Yeah, so they're working 2 to midnight, and that's every day except Sundays. And what we've done is based on some of the data we've collected from the police department. Police, their only complaint is we want more hours for impact, more hours for impact. So we moved them off Sunday, and we moved them to 2 days during the week where they're doubled up, but they're working like 9 till 5, and the other one's 2 till midnight. So we've got some double coverage there, and that's what we do probably Mondays and Thursdays. But we've allowed to kind of work that schedule to appease those off hours that the police want an impact advocate, but we've not covered Sundays just so we can move them out. And it's important that we don't grind them into the ground either. It's hard work. They were both working today. One of our advocates was doing a home visit, was kicked by a 13-year-old really hard in the shin, so we have to do a review of that, and it's dangerous work just like law enforcement is, and we're going to situations where we may not have all the answers. If you get somebody who has a mental health issue, mental health crisis, facing homelessness, those are not easy discussions. So we do have concerns about the work we're doing, but it's important work, and it needs to be done. Thank you.
Very good.
Your Honor, may I?
Yes.
David, so with, do you have like an example of when, you know, an individual comes in with the mental health or the homelessness case, kind of how long they're, you know, with you guys with Impact, and like what is their life now, or has it shifted type thing?
Yeah, we've moved several people from homelessness to being housed, or at least sheltered, we'll say. So on a mental health case, we'll provide an intervention at that point. Instead of saying, hey, here's a business card of so-and-so agency, call them in the morning, they can contact YSS the next day, get with that family, get an appointment, and that may be a mental health evaluation we can do, substance abuse evaluation we can do, or we work with other agency partners as well. We offer community choice. We're not the be-all, end-all of all agencies. So we move people from being housed. That's the real challenge because the housing inventory is not that good. Getting people the mental health therapy they need, the medication, substance abuse assessments, things like that. So we actually had a family we're housing for 2 nights tonight, a single mom and their 8-year-old son. So we put them up in a hotel room. So donations continue to come through YSS for those purposes. So that at least buys us 48 hours to figure out, okay, what's the plan? Is it a bus ticket to go back with her mom? So we really are solution-based. And the case management piece is critical because we're going to walk with them to get that solution.
Your Honor?
Yes.
So you gave us 8 months of data with your 2 case advocates. Where are we in terms of capacity? I mean, you've talked about flexing days to match where the data is driving you, but what is a perfect state for you from a capacity standpoint?
It'd be great to have 3 advocates that we can meet, close to 24 hours coverage. Right now we're doing, a single advocate's doing about 10 hours a day. If we get 2 on there, then we're closing in on about 18 hours a day, which is pretty good, and we're just seeing those results. If we can get 2 advocates in a day, that covers a lot of time. But there's issues that come up with the PD at 8 a.m., 3 a.m. Sometimes we just don't have an advocate on at those times, but we'd love to.
Thank you.
Good report.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Next, we have a report for the Homeless Shelterless Task Force.
We're going to get this PowerPoint started here.
I think if you go to slideshow.
Yep.
Play from beginning.
Kendra Sorensen, Executive Director of Marshalltown Area United Way, and also standing here wearing my other hat, which is co-chair for the Homelessness Task Force. And I am joined by...
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jasmine Banderas, and I work at CAPS, Child, Adolescent, Parent Support Services, and I supervise our crisis services and our refugee programs.
I also want to acknowledge first, too, as I looked around the room, we have a ton of individuals that are volunteering their time on our Homelessness Task Force. And so if you would you please stand? And if you're not already standing, maybe just wave your hand. Thank you, Mike. So a great group of people. Again, Marshalltown's wonderful. And when you encounter something that's a challenge here in our community, it's phenomenal to see those that step up and decide that they want to be a part of it and they want to have some of those discussions and figure out how can we overcome some of those challenges here in our community. So I'm going to start off with essentially the how. When did we start these efforts and the why? So just a little bit of history. Prior City Administrator Jessica Kenzer collaborated with actually John Hall and me to schedule a homelessness roundtable discussion. I know there are a few of you that are sitting up in the seats right now that were part of that, but I knew that there was a lot of new city council folk, and so I wanted to make sure that I spoke a little bit on top of that. So the roundtable discussion, which took place on April 20th of 2023, that seems hard to believe, I facilitated the meeting, and we had 4 panelists. We had Chief Tupper representing the Marshalltown Police Department, Eric Goslinga with the Marshalltown Community School District and the MLA, David Hicks, YSS, and Jody Stumbo with the Bridge Home. At the roundtable, I had each panelist talk about the unique situations that they had encountered regarding homelessness challenges in our community. I shared 211 data, which is a United Way service that connects individuals to resources and tracks community needs. A majority of the challenges were due to late evening and weekend encounters when there is more limited accessibility to case management and resources. After the presentation, Mayor Joel Greer called for a homelessness task force to be formed and asked for volunteers to lead efforts. I somehow got just voluntold, maybe, no. Joel he had needed some contact information, and I had sent him an email with the contact information, and then he told me, hey, by the way, thanks for stepping up to volunteer to lead efforts. And matter of fact, it was something, obviously with the work we do, it was something very near and dear to my heart. Sorry, I didn't know if I was going to share this today, but me being up here means a lot to me today. 5 years ago, I lost my brother. He was homeless. He battled alcoholism, drug use, and it's something very hard for me to talk about because part of it feels embarrassing. But I am here honoring him tonight. And those are the individuals, if we can connect them to resources, that's why I care about what I'm doing. I'm going to get through this. I told Jasmine, I'm like, I might get a little emotional. So Steve Benzma and I agreed to co-chair because I knew that it would take a lot of work and effort, and I knew that I wouldn't have the capacity to fully do it on my own. So we eventually split into two groups, serving different components such as facility and resources, so two different focal groups. The resources group got to work on a SWOT analysis, while the facility group looked into possible shelter options and funding. So that is kind of the when we formed and why. Actually, I was going to have you click to the next slide. There we go.
Okay.
Has anybody ever done that before? Nope, thanks. First timer here. So what I'm going to share with you now is our ALICE reports. And this specifically came out in the spring. And it's a lot around where inflation is really affecting our ALICE individuals. And I'm going to talk about who ALICE is if you don't know who that is. Next slide. So our ALICE individuals are asset-limited, income-constrained, employed. They are our working individuals. And before we go on, so we shared tonight one of the stories about Dudas and the managers, and now that's a business closing. It truly is, these ALICE individuals can be one paycheck, one health situation, one expensive repair, whether it's home or automobile. They are living paycheck to paycheck. So the ALICE reports are actually led by a research team. It was out of the United Way of New Jersey. Those researchers are called the RAC, so the Research Advisory Committee, made up of state members. So you've got your academic institutions, you've got social and human services, hospitals, governments, etc. Then we're going to click to the next slide. I'm going to try to get through this pretty quick. So companion to CPI. So your CPI is, the weight of the price of a weighted average market basket of a consumer goods and services purchased by households and includes non-essential goods and services. CPI is widely used to determine policy at a government level, which leaves ALICE households ineligible a lot of times for services and programs. ALICE Essentials Index better describes the real needs because it is restricted to goods and services. One thing that I wanted to point out with this slide specifically, so if you look at the top category that faced the biggest increase from 2007 to 2023, it is housing, 76% increase. To me, that was so mind-blowing. I mean, 76%. And then healthcare coming in second at 75% increase. Next slide. So this slide here essentially shows where the consumer price index lies and then the Alice Essentials. So as you can tell, they both continue to rise, but the one thing that I want to point out on this slide is the gap that's widening between the consumer price index and the Alice Essentials. This here is a mind-blowing slide too to me, because if you look all the way from, you can start with the Great Recession, early recovery, pandemic, and look at where our numbers are now of what's projected for Alice Essentials. So you're looking at 7.3% versus the consumer price index of 6.1. Policy implications. So Social Security and Supplement Security Income each year, Social Security and Supplemental Security Income, SSI, make a cost of living adjustment, which is called COLA, and it is based on the CPI. However, the cost of many of the essential goods and services purchased by a typical household that receives these benefits increase faster than COLA. And a couple different things to point out on this, just looking at the difference between 2010 and 2022. In that first column, you're going to see SSI, and then off to the right, Social Security. And then from the next couple slides, you're going to see why this is an important slide that I really wanted to bring to everybody's attention. But as you can see, there's a huge gap there between the two of the need and then what it really costs. So this specifically is Alice in Marshall County. So this is 2022 point-in-time data. You've got our population size there, number of households sitting at 15,288. Your median income for Marshall County was $63,591 against a state average of $65,600. Alice households, 25% of the households in Marshall County are in Alice. So they are just above the poverty level and just in that working class that doesn't qualify then for benefits. State average for Alice households was 26%. Households in poverty was 12%, state average of 11%. So one thing that I really wanted to point out on this slide, which was great data that we had this year, and this was at a request of our United Ways of Iowa, was that we really wanted to be able to break down not just Marshalltown data, but also the counties within the county, the cities. And so I wasn't surprised to see Marshalltown proper at 41%, but closely following behind us is LeGrand, Rhodes, and then State Center. So those are pretty big numbers. If you really think about that, 41% in Marshalltown are below Alice threshold. Next slide. This is the breakout of the different household types. So you're going to see single cohabitating, families with children, and then 65 and over. Obviously, you can tell, so the dark blue on the bottom is your poverty, your light blue is your Alice, and then anything in the yellow is above the Alice threshold. But as you can see, our biggest impacted group there is 65 and over. So that's the reason why I was wanting to call out prior the SSI and the Social Security, because a lot of those individuals are living on a fixed income. This just gives you an aspect of ethnicity. So again, you've got across the bottom, Asian, Black, Hispanic, white. Not a lot of change from last year's data when I went back to look and bench us, pretty well staying consistent. But this really shows some of the disparities that we have in our community. And then I wanted to break out, there's so many different ways you can dice data. I love data. So we've got household types, biggest impacted, single female headed with children, 71%. Seniors 65. They were, go back one. So there's your senior 65, 49% when you break it out by age.
So who is the Homelessness Task Force? As Kendra had a couple of our members stand up earlier, our task force is made up of different individuals in Marshalltown, some being representatives of some of our agencies in Marshalltown who are serving families with children, your older adults in town, or the younger population. These are just some examples of some of the people that are part of our Homelessness Task Force. Access, CAPS, Mid-Iowa Triumph Center, Salvation Army, YSS, Marshalltown School District, Marshalltown Sheriff's Office, MPD. We have some local landlords on our task force, a representative from our housing department, and also residents of Marshall County who are passionate about this issue. And something that we all have in common is we've all come across or are working with a lot of these individuals who are facing homelessness. As David mentioned earlier, a lot of the calls that they're receiving are due to homeless situations. And so, as Kendra mentioned, at the beginning of forming this task force, we had two groups, one that was focused on resources and another group that was focused on facilities. What we wanted to do was try to see if there was a way that we could essentially have another homeless shelter here in Marshalltown because of the need that we were seeing in our community. And so these two groups divided and worked on identifying possible buildings that were already in our community and maybe could be remodeled, or looking at the possibility of bringing this back into our community. Unfortunately, the resources are just not there financially to have a homeless shelter at this point in time in Marshalltown. Something that we also recognized was that there's really not a lot of grants out there to fund such efforts. And so we know this issue already exists in our community. We know that we're working with a lot of these individuals. So what can we do to alleviate this situation or to work towards these efforts? A lot of us who are a part of these agencies, who are working with these individuals, are already providing case management. As David stated earlier, case management is very important to the success of somebody being housed or being sheltered. And so our approach, right now we wish we could have a shelter in Marshalltown, but that's just not realistic at this moment. And so our approach at this time is to work more collaboratively, all of these other agencies and individuals in our community, to provide case management to these individuals, because that's what they need in order for them to be connected to the right resources, connected to housing and sustainable housing, something that they're able to continue to sustain over time. And we know that this is something that's very important. At this time, our short-term priorities would be fundraising efforts, trying to fundraise financial assistance to provide these individuals with rental assistance, rent assistance, or deposits. At this current time in Marshalltown, there's no financial assistance for deposits for rent, and possible hotel stays. Again, I'm going to go back to what David mentioned earlier, working with somebody who's homeless, especially when they have children or if it's a pregnant mother, is during these extreme temperatures, having somewhere safe that they can go is ideal when providing case management. It makes it easier for these agencies or other individuals who are working with them to try to find stable housing, or sometimes it's a waiting game, helping them apply for low-income housing and having somewhere safe that they can go during this time. And so our hope is to fundraise money to maybe go towards these efforts. Agencies in our community would be able to access this assistance for individuals or families that they're working with. And again, they would have to follow case management, meeting with their worker, making sure that they're following goals that they've identified, and that they're following through with program services. We hope to establish a discretionary committee that would oversee these funds and would approve any assistance that any agency would be accessing for an individual or a family that they're working with at this time. Did you want to add anything else, Kendra?
I think pretty well covered. So any questions, whether it's Alice data that we shared or what this looks like, even a little bit more into that. So any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yes. Actually, it's not a question. It's just so people know. When we're talking about a facility here in Marshalltown, the amount of money that you would actually need to fund for the facility and be able to man the facility, you're talking anywhere from $2 to $4 million. And you can't just, it can't just be any place with bedrooms, anything like that. Also, in case people are still a little unclear, the reason why we want to have these people case managed, what case managed means is you're sat down with a set of goals. You need to continue following through with each one of them to get you to the point to where you're employed and you're housed, because just putting someone up for the night doesn't do anybody any good. Mm-hmm. It really doesn't. It's a very short-term thing. We're hoping to have the funds to put people up for a few nights so that CAPS, a United Way, everybody like that can get in there and start case managing them. But Kendra, if people are interested in donating to this,
Homelessness
where should they
Task
send
Force?
the money?
Absolutely. So at approval of the Board of My Directors, we are setting up a secondary account that is specifically for Homelessness Task Force, much like United Way did for the LTFR, which was the Long-Term Family Recovery account that was set up when the tornado came through. So that way, funds would go directly there. It's going to a 501c3. Those funds, those bank accounts and everything are then presented at each one of our Homelessness Task Force meetings. So you can stop by our office. We're located at 709 South Center Street inside the MAC, the Marshalltown Arts and Civic Center. If you're unaware of where we're located, you can certainly always call our office too. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, the one other thing that I would comment, so there's funding available when you look at state funding and other funding levels for more like transitional living type of situations. But when it comes to emergency shelter, that's where there's not funds. Unfortunately. And I know that there recently was a pilot program that came out. So that makes me hopeful that potentially down the road, if maybe one of these pilot programs go really well, maybe there will be potential availability of some funding down the road.
We're kind of looking to see what, Des Moines' got a hot button issue right now. You know, they're trying to clean up the tent cities. They've increased fines. They've lowered fines. They're trying to figure out what to do. We're watching what Ames did. Ames was lucky enough to have the money and a building and an area where they could put something together within a small radius of schools and healthcare and things like that. And we are connected with the Bridge Home, Jody Stumbo, who came over to that first meeting. has been part of this dialogue, so.
And currently, Story County is really, they've partnered with Salvation Army, and they are providing those hotel stays and the case management over there.
As I recall, was it Gosling who came with the data? There were
Yes.
like 186 unhoused children.
Yes.
In our school system. They're living in cars, going from
Correct.
relative to relative. I mean,
Couch, a lot of couch surfing.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's a serious thing. And I got to thank both of you. And I know from what CAPS has done in the past with the crisis care and that sort of thing, what kind of impact they've had around here. But thank you.
You're
for that.
welcome. And
Anyone
each
else?
one of our agencies, they're doing fabulous job. Some of them specialize in certain areas, and that's the reason why a few of them were identified tonight on the slide. So really looking at YSS with the youth 25 and under, CAPS serving families, and then our group that's kind of fallen through the cracks are those single individuals, the older individuals, especially with health concerns. We see a lot of that. And so having conversations with John Hoffer with Salvation Army and then Sharon Swoop with Mid-Iowa Triumph, they said they would be more than happy to step up in the capacity that they can. But also considering when you look at Salvation Army, they are a staff of 2. And Sharon's group, they're at 4 now. So
I saw some of these figures. The Rotary Club was the beneficiary of your program on some of these things too. You have 2 young mothers that are the campaign chairs this year. You just
Yes.
started it off. It's a $900,000 goal. So many of the agencies, they're all around town here. So donate to United Way, and don't forget the homelessness is going to be part of that now too.
yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, if I may?
You may.
Very good presentation.
Thanks, Mike.
That's why we need to be more conscientious on what we spend our money on in this city, because people are on a fixed income, and we need to take care of the needs first. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks. All right. Madam Clerk, what's our first of the resolutions tonight?
Resolution 2024-206, authorizing the city to submit a U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, brownfields assessment grant.
Move to approve, Your Honor.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Heather Thomas, helping with some community development items this evening. So the item in front of you is for application to the U.S. EPA for a brownfield assessment grant. The city currently has one of these. It is used for assessment of environmental issues with properties. These are not only city-owned properties, but we also work with people that are potentially developing properties, selling properties, buying properties. And so in your packet, I've included some information about the city's history with this program. We first applied for this program in 2007. We were awarded about $400,000 of assessment funds. We were able to utilize those funds over 37 properties here in town. In 2014, we applied again. We were not successful in that application. In 2019, we were applied and awarded $300,000. That is our current grant that we're working under. We've got 16 properties as part of that project with another 2 properties pending. So it's not a frequent or a given, it's very competitive. The funds that are available right now, we would be, if awarded, one of 55 communities in the nation. So this is a highly competitive program, but we are requesting your approval tonight for $500,000 application to the Brownfields US EPA program. The application would be due in November of this year. Award announcements would be in the spring of next year. They estimate about 90 days from award announcement to when we would actually have the cooperative agreement in place where we'd be able to utilize those funds. We would be targeting, very similar to this grant, the Highway 14 corridor all the way from the south city limits to the north city limits, as well as downtown. Those hit some of the properties that are spoken about, like the mall site, the old hospital site, and some of those properties. But this would be a community-wide assessment, so we would not be limited to those areas. Those would just be our priority target areas. With that, I'll open it up for questions.
Any questions or comments up here? Any from the public? Roll call.
Lottiehoff,
Thanks, Heather.
Yes.
Mitchell,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Fonseca,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Very good, that carried. What's our next resolution?
Resolution 2024-207, accepting bid and authorizing the award of contract for the Riverview Park Improvement Project number PRK 23001 in the city of Marshalltown, Iowa, in the amount of $1,336,029 to Construct, Inc.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion.
Jeff Hubbard, Park and Rec Director. As you know, we put these bids out a couple months ago, and they came in last week, and we are happy to see that they came in number one underneath the engineer's estimates, and they were given to a local contractor, Construct, so that's nice. I want to make one thing change in the memo. It's actually going to be paid out of 364 GO bonds. I made the mistake of putting 353 in there, which are future ones, but this is the $2.5 million that we had for phase one that was for the lagoon, but now we're doing all kinds of fun things with pickleball courts and things. So recommend that we approve to award contract so they can start working.
Any questions or comments for Jeff up here?
I will add to that, so this gives us about an extra $400,000. I think we also have $200,000 in contingency for the overall project, which I hope we're not going to need to dig into too much of. So if all goes well with everything, we would like to work with Construct to use some of those additional funds and do some improvements to the lagoon area. So we might be working with Bolton and Mink and Construct to come up with some additional work for them to do and maybe use up some of those extra funds.
Public comment?
Your Honor, if I may.
You may.
Jeff, when would this start?
When they get done with State Street, so I can get in my office. I mean, a lot of that's concrete work and demo work and stuff, that they can start working on that as soon as possible.
Very good. I don't see anybody rushing to the mic. Let's call the roll.
Kell,
Yes.
Lottiehoff,
Yes.
Mitchell,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Fonseca,
Yes.
Very good, that carried. And if you haven't been to Riverside lately, just people ought to go see what's going on out there right now too, as we get into these new improvements. All right, next resolution.
Resolution 2024-208, approving Snyder and Associates Professional Service Agreement Amendment Number 2 for design and construction for the Lynn Creek Trailhead and Bridge projects in the amount of $27,800 and designating Contact as the pre-approved supplier for the prefabricated pedestrian bridge.
Move for approval.
Second.
Discussion.
Jeff Hubbard, Park and Rec Director again. So as we've been moving through this project, the bridge has kind of been similar to what the Water Plaza main sculpture has been. We want something that's unique, that stands out, that people who are either driving over 6th Street Viaduct or this is their beginning part of their bike ride up to Steamboat Rock or ending here after Steamboat Rock. And we want to make sure that we have a kind of an iconic bridge that kind of has some wow factor to it, kind of like the High Trestle Trail. We just don't need we don't want a normal bridge like what's going in Riverview Park. No offense, Greg. So we've been working with Steiner Associates about how to make that happen. The bridge that we're looking at would have two overlooks to look up and down the creek. But then we decided that we wanted to make sure that people knew that they were actually in the Lynn Creek district. And so we wanted to tie in not only the Water Plaza, but the Trailhead and Bridge project. So we're working with both Bolton and Mink and Steiner Associates with benches, with bike racks, with lighting and bollard lighting and up lighting, things like that, that will be consistent in the district area. And so we wanted to actually tie in the bridge to that same concept. So we had Steiner Associates work with Hildy DeBrune, who did the Water Plaza, to how we could make the bridge kind of have that wow factor. And that's going to happen in the way of railings that will have the acrylic things I think I've showed you in the project, the acrylic things that will allow light to shine through it, like the same thing with the Water Plaza. So to get what we need a bridge, kind of basically a specific bridge that will allow us to have these art railings added to it and other lighting and things, amenities. And to get that done, so that we can get things out to bid and be closed with a destination on a project. It's going to be more beneficial to us to hire the bridge contractor to give all those contractors a shop drawings, specifications, what the bridge has to look like, as well as a cost, and every bidder will be bidding the same thing to allow us to be able to do that. So this would pay them $25,000 to do that work up front. As part of the bridge, and then also an additional $2,800 to have some asbestos work done by a lender, Budsky, for asbestos and removal of the bridge. So that's what the two prices are that equal that $27,800.
Thank you for that. Any questions or comments by the council? Any public comment or questions? Roll call.
Thompson?
Yes.
Fonseca?
Yes.
Cal?
Yes.
Bodyhoff?
Yes.
Mitchell?
No.
Schneider?
Yes.
Very good. That carried as well. On to our next item.
Public hearing and resolution 2024-209 approving plan specification, form of contract, and the cost for the 6th Street Trail project in the city of Marshalltown, Iowa, being project number TRL 18-002.
Public hearing is open at 6:34 PM. Did the clerk's office receive any written comments?
No, Your Honor.
It is time for public comment first. I'm not seeing anybody rushing to the mic. It's now time for staff comment.
So as you know, we put out the bids for the 6th Street Trail project, which will include connecting the bridge that I just talked about through the American Legion property to connect up with the Creekside Trail that's already there, then behind Wayward Social to connect up to Crosby Place, and then a little stretch to connect up to the Freedom Rock. Right now, we have about, let's see, we had $315,000 in funding. Part of that was $65,000 in loss, $250,000 in geo bonds. We've used $50,000 of that for construction. Right now, the engineer's estimates are at $309,000. So we're hoping that we get as good a bids as we did on Riverview Park, and everything will come in good. But there may be an ask when we come back to you to kind of close that gap. We think we can do some of the engineering work in-house to follow up with construction of that. That may save us a little bit of money. But we'll wait. Bids will be due back in 2 weeks, and we'll bring them for you at the next council meeting to review.
Now it's time for council comments.
Your Honor, may I?
You may.
Jeff, the bridge you're talking about, is it the one that old one behind the skate park? Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes, and so that one's getting demoed, and a new bridge will be placed kind of just east of that, sorry.
Okay.
Anyone else up here?
If I may?
You may.
Jeff, do you have a photo of the diagram of the, what you submitted? Do you have a slide there that people could see?
I do not, of the trail, I don't think I have it in this document, and I mean, it's basically connecting the skate park trail area up to the parking lot of the golf course behind Wayward Social.
I think Heather's trying to pull it up here.
We did see it in our earlier meeting.
Earlier, the estimation was to come up close behind Wayward Social. And then it was my understanding that Wayward Social decided that they didn't want it that close after we had already removed the trees. And then now we're pushing it back and had to remove those trees.
We removed just one or two trees there where the trail, the Creekside Estates meets there one. So I don't think we've removed extra trees than what we had planned. There is more in the back probably, but I know that Terry has gone in and removed a bunch and cleaned up that area. But the reason why he wanted it moved back further was if he ever wanted to expand the bowling alley and add additional things, it would allow him to do that and be attached to his building.
So then it was an added expense to the city to move it that way. More concrete.
Bolton and Mink had to do some work to redesign it, as well as, yes, there's probably some additional feet of concrete.
So my question would be, why would we do that to benefit one person's business? Are we going to continue to do that throughout the city if they want a bike path behind their property? Are we going to put that in then? I mean, you're setting a precedence here.
Well, he's allowing us to go through his property and giving us an easement on it, so any other property owner could tell us, I want you to do it this way versus that way.
Well, I think maybe he ought to do the expense then, since it's going through his property and it's his business, that'll be beneficial. Just my opinion.
Any other, let's see, other council comments at this time?
Your Honor, if I may?
You may.
Jeff, you do have all the easements signed, right? You only needed 2, right?
Well, there's actually 4. The Legion has 2 easements, one with their housing trust, and then one with the GLIC. So there's 2 with the 2 with the city, and then there's also behind Crosby Place, there's a little section too, that trail there. So there's actually 4 properties, Wayward, Crosby, and 2 with, yes, we have
you
all
have
those.
them all. You're ready to go with all that.
Yeah, we had that before the last council meeting.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Your Honor.
Anyone else up here? All right, time then for declaring the public hearing is closed at 6:39 PM. I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve, Your Honor.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Fonseca,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Bodyhoff,
Yes.
Mitchell,
No.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you. On to the next one.
Public hearing and resolution 2024-210 approving the development agreement with Rise M LLC, authorizing annual appropriation tax increment payments and pledging certain tax increment revenues to the payment of the agreement.
It's 6:40. Public hearing is open. Did you get any written comments?
No, Your Honor.
Time for public comments. And, yeah, public comments are good.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. John Hall, Marshalltown Area Chamber of Commerce, 34 West Main Street. I was before you the last time that this item was up for discussion ahead of the formal public hearing and development agreement with Rise M for the VA clinic development. I'll reiterate again some of the points I made that evening. This is a solid development agreement, something that we have worked through 3 city administrations and navigated through. And truthfully, what it has allowed us to do is to make additional land development ready. And so we know we've got prospects already navigating through, attempting to navigate through acquisition of some of the parcels and have been in contact with the owners. So we know that the job that we wanted this development agreement to do is already working. We all would have loved to have brought this before you much earlier than when it ultimately is getting brought before you. But we do have the flexibility to bring this before you still, knowing that we had developers that were effectively operating in good faith and bringing forward a project that, again, we would have supported from the outset with this, and are happy with how it's all come together and with the prospects that we're seeing on the land. So, thank you all.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comments before we go on to
Your
staff?
Honor,
Yes.
one of the developers is online right now, I believe. Matt Bosch is with Rise.
Yeah, I am. Can you guys hear me okay?
Just fine, thanks.
Great. Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you for this consideration. Yeah, as Mr. Hall said, we've gone through a lengthy process here, but it's been a good experience working with the City of Marshalltown, so we sure appreciate that. My partner, Eric, is not able to be on the call tonight. He's with his 3rd-generation Air Force son hunting, but we are a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business that is passionate about serving the veterans and their health care and their mental health. So we are excited to bring this project into Marshalltown. And like Mr. Hall said, with this, we are able to develop some land around this clinic and make it saleable for continued development. I think many of you know the area we're in, but there's quite a hill that we had to level and take down, bring in some infrastructure, water retention, those type of things. And with the work of staff, we think we've come to a great situation and resolution to where if we get this done, we can offer this land and get some things moving. So again, really appreciate the effort of staff. It's been a very pro-development approach, I think, a very fair process.
Thank you, Eric. Any other public comment? Any staff review then on this one?
Public would have any questions concerning some of the terms of the contract, I could go over that material. Okay. There was a nod from a couple of council people, so I'll go through some of the terms. This is a 10-year agreement, not to exceed $800,000, and it is strictly over the development that is going to be increment that's going to be paid by the project itself. It'll be what we call a rebate on that. The appropriation will not begin until next budget year, simply because the assessment, which completed the project, will not be put onto the tax rolls until 25, so it will impact your 26-27 budget, except for any staff cost or legal cost to put this document together. Those can be paid out of the first certification of the taxes. So those will not impact the general fund or any other funds to take care of this particular department.
Thank you. And after staff review comes council comments. Short of that, we will call at 6:45, the public hearing is closed. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Second.
Roll call.
Bodyhoff,
Yes.
Mitchell,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
Absolutely not.
Fonseca,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Okay, a no would suffice. On to ordinances. What's our first one?
Ordinance 15091 to amend the Code of Ordinances, City of Marshalltown, Iowa, Chapter 156, zoning for parking, loading, and stacking, third reading.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve, Your Honor.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion up here? Any public comment? Well, let's call the roll.
Mitchell,
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm moving too fast. Nobody usually accuses me of that these days.
Is this concerning the grass and gravel and everything else ordinance, or is this something else? Okay.
No. Okay, roll call.
Mitchell,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Fonseca,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Bodyhoff,
Yes.
Very good. That carried as well. And our second and last ordinance?
Ordinance 15093, amending ordinance number 13657 relating to partial property tax exemptions for industrial property on which improvements have been made, providing a schedule of tax exemption and setting for the procedure to obtain same, second reading.
Motion to approve?
Move to approve, Your Honor.
Thank you. Is there a second? Discussion on this one?
Your Honor, may I?
You may.
Is there any centers or that is being used, that this amendment, they're using this, not amendment, abatement? Is there any place that's using it right now or would use it right now?
Your Honor, if I may.
You may.
We do have some of our businesses in the industrial area that have used this in the past. And I understand that Marshall Company is currently using it for their improvements that they did a year or so ago.
Any other discussion up here? Any public discussion on this one? Roll call.
Mitchell,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Fonseca,
Yes.
Kell?
Yes.
Lottiehoff?
Yes.
Very good, that carried. On to discussion items. Police Department found bicycle disposition policy is our first one.
Good evening, Mike Tupper, Marshtown Police Department. So you all have discussed a lot of really important things tonight, and this is not going to be one of them. So, but bear with me. Found bicycles have become a bane of our existence at the police department. It's odd to me. It's been odd to me for many years now, but apparently bicycles have become disposable property because we don't take that many stolen bike reports, but we sure take in a lot of found bicycles. And by the looks of some of these bicycles, I understand why nobody's claiming them, because they're really not worth anything. We have roughly 90 bikes sitting in storage right now, and we historically have used public auctions to get rid of these things. It doesn't bring in any money in. It costs us a ton of money when you figure in staff time and all the work that goes in to prepare for the auction, and when you figure the storage, what it would cost to store the bikes if we were paying for storage. It's just not cost effective. So we've put together a draft policy that you have in your packet, and I'm happy to answer questions or take input. But if it looks good to you, the plan would be to bring back a resolution next time allowing us to implement this policy, and then by and large we'll be about every 6 months just taking the bicycles to salvage, and whatever money we bring in goes back to the general fund. We use social media every once in a while, and we'll continue to do that to remind people, hey, if you lost your bike, give us a call, but they really don't. So I think it's no longer worthwhile to store these bikes. Let's get rid of them. And if we come across one that's worth fixing up, we'll fix it up and donate it to a charitable cause. But we had the gentleman from the bike shop here downtown to take a look at what we have now, and there's really nothing worth fixing up. So we would just like to quit storing them for a year or two at a time and get rid of them. Happy to answer questions.
Or is open up here for questions?
Your Honor, if I may.
You may.
Chief, is there something magical about the 6 month? Is that a state legal requirement? Can we get rid of them sooner? Is 3 months?
Well, there's nothing magical about 6 months. That was, as we were writing the policy, staff recommended to me 6 months. So that gives people ample time to claim their bike. And if they don't, after 6 months, we'll take our chances and just get rid of it.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Other questions up here?
Your Honor, may I?
You may.
Chief, do you know the cost for like destroying one of the bikes, or where would they go, or?
We'll take them down to the salvage yard, and they'll essentially be buying them from the city, and whatever the salvage is, they'll give us money for the bikes.
Oh, okay.
It's not going to be a lot of money. It's not going to be much.
Oh, okay, so you guys would be getting money from
well,
the bikes.
We'll be bringing in a little something.
A little
a
something.
little revenue. It won't be much, but.
I did, I went in, you guys have 19,000 followers on Facebook, and I was like, wow, didn't realize how many. But I went on there and I searched, the posts that you guys have had on, auctioning the bikes and letting the public know that you guys have the bikes, and there is a ton of bikes in those pictures. And but yeah, I do like the part where, you guys would donate them to whoever may need them and in the community, so that's an option, or not just throwing taking them to be destroyed. So
yeah, if we bring in something that's obviously has some value, we're going to work extra hard to try to find the owner, but that's just not the case. And so this junk bikes are being left in yards, and I don't know how it ever started where police departments became the authority responsible for picking these darn things up, but every community does it. I wish we didn't, but we do, and so let's just quit storing them and get rid of them sooner.
Staring at age 72, I remember well that we had to get little metal things that you wrapped around the stem of the bike to have a license, and then you could identify it.
Well, and to that point, we do have a bike license program, and they're cheap, and quite frankly, I'd give you one for free if you'd actually do it, because if we find a bike and there's a license on it, we can get it back to you. But not many people sign up for bike licenses either.
Your Honor?
Yeah.
I think this is a great idea. I'd like to make a motion for city staff to bring back a resolution to enact this policy outlined in the memo.
There's a second to that?
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Any other comment up here, public comment on this one? Let's call, oh,
Linda Clark, 306 South 2nd Avenue. I have always been very proud of our Marshalltown community. We back in the day had a policy of bikes all had to be licensed. They were inspected. They had to have lights on them. We are pushing bike trails. We're having people riding bicycles right here in Marshalltown now. They're not doing it in a safe manner. There seems to be no accountability for any of the things anymore that has to deal with bicycles. I read the article about there being 91 bicycles that were basically junk. Okay, I would make this possibility. Okay, are any of them licensed now that they have? How about just put them out, and if somebody wants to come and look at them and think they can repair them, let them rebuild them. Give them away. We're giving a lot of things away in this town anymore. Everywhere you go, there's something being given free, even my bank. Diapers. Okay, that's my comment, and thank you, but we need to go back to licensing and some accountability of the people that are riding these bicycles in Marshalltown, these big ones that cost lots of money, that don't share the road with people walking on the bike trails. Thank you for your time.
any other public comment?
Jim Shaw, 522 North 2nd Street. I'm all for licensing them, because I had a kid threaten to throw his bicycle through the rear window of my car, because he was doing stuff at my apartment building and I caught him. So I'd like to have a licensing so I could get his name. Thank you.
Anyone else? I think we had a motion and a second. Let's call the roll.
Bodyhoff,
Yes.
Mitchell, Schneider,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Fonseca,
Yes.
Kell,
Yes.
Okay, on to Chapter 72, Parking Rules, Parking Pad. Who wants to open the discussion on this one?
Good evening, Heather Thomas, Public Works. To go over the discussion from last time, I'm going to open a memo. If you'll recall, back in March, we had brought forward some changes to Chapter 72. One of the possibilities we wanted council input on was whether or not to allow a parking pad. It is currently not allowed by our Chapter 72 ordinance. In those discussions, I don't think there was council consensus, and the consensus was to send this back to planning and zoning for their input. At that time, their input was not to allow parking pads. As we brought this forward again for discussion and the first reading of the ordinance, it was tabled to revisit parking pads, and we got a little bit more direction as far as if we were to allow them, what kind of parameters would we allow them with. And so that's what's in front of you tonight. I'm going to zoom in here. There's some history in the memo for those curious, but it came down to we'd like direction from council, a firm decision whether yes, we'll allow them and what parameters will allow them, or no, will not allow them. So as far as the parameters to allow them, one of the things we looked at for kind of consistency was Chapter 156 in zoning. And if they have accessory structures on their property, whether that be side or rear yards, how much space are they allowed to take up with a detached garage or a shed or those kind of things? And so that information is included in your packet as well. And one of the comments we've heard from the public is that some of these parking concerns are really more of an issue in some of the smaller lots and the north side of town. And so we took a lot of looking at what lot sizes are and what may or may not accommodate a parking pad. And so in this section, we kind of went through some standard lots in the smaller size. I know when we talked last time, we started off at 1 acre. I think there was a discussion item, another council member mentioned taking that down to a half an acre. We did receive follow-up from a council meeting, our council member last week requesting taking that down to a 1/4 acre. So we kind of took a look at this. Example A, so that is the one on the right-hand side of your screen. There is the road on the bottom of the screen. This is a 0.2 acre lot. It is a single-family house. It does not have a garage. There's no detached structures, and it does not have a driveway. And so for this property, I've included some specifics here as far as what the lot size is, how big the rear yard is. And then this 30% of the rear yard, that's the comparison related to Chapter 156 and allowable accessory structures. So on this lot, I guess one of the questions I would have for council is, what would be your comfort level of them putting a parking pad in this rear yard? If you look at some of the neighbors, there is actually a boat in the neighbor to the right-hand side. And in the left-hand side, there is space, and I think there was a vehicle. I might have cut off the edge just a little bit. So in this example, it's a 0.2 acre lot. Is there a comfort level from council that this would be an allowable lot to put a parking pad on? Example B is this blue parcel here. Again, street is going to be on the bottom side of this house. It's a 0.1 acre lot. The rear yard is pretty small because of how it's situated on the lot, and it's a wider lot than it is deep. The rear yard here is only 12.5 feet. So based on the accessory structure of 30% allowance in the zoning code, there probably would not be an ability to put a rear parking pad on this property if we did require a 5-foot setback. This next example C, is on the right-hand side of the screen. The street on this one is on the upper side of the picture. And this is a 0.11 acre parcel. Again, we have a single-family home. It's a little hard to see, but they do have a detached garage here that's 12 by 18 feet, or 216 square feet. They do have quite a bit of yard here, and I guess the question would be is, would there be a comfort level for anybody to allow a parking pad in this rear yard? If you look again at the property neighboring to it, there are existing a motor home, and it looks like a truck in the rear yard of that property. Example D, again, 0.14 acre lot, so even a larger lot than the one we just looked at. But as you can see, the front here is on the right-hand side of your screen. The rear yard is very small. It's only about 9 feet deep. And again, there's just no space for a parking pad. And so the reason we went through these 4 examples with you tonight was sometimes maybe the lot size doesn't tell the whole story of whether or not a parking pad would fit. And so when we were asked to bring back a potential solution to this problem, city staff felt maybe dictating it based on the size of the lot might not be the right appropriate checklist to use. And so we have outlined a few items here. As far as the size go, I think we talked about 12 by 24 at the last meeting, which is 288 square foot. We had some discussion maybe to allow a little bit bigger. 12 by 24 may not accommodate 2 vehicles, and I think that was the intent in some cases. So if we go up just a little bit further, right here, so 288 square feet is also 16 by 18, which might be just shy of what 2 vehicles could fit on. Standard parking stall would be 9 by 18. So we would need probably 18 by 18, which is 324 square feet if you were going to do a rectangular one to allow 2 vehicles. So in my recommendation down here, I have both listed and would like council input if that's something we'd like to do, whether to cap that square foot at 288 or 324. As far as the material goes, we would recommend that the materials allowed be only concrete, asphalt, or a brick paver type surfacing. In other words, not allowing grass, not allowing gravel. Setbacks, we're proposing unconnected parking pads shall not be located in the front, side street, or side yards. They must be 100% entirely in the rear yard. We had some little discussion about whether to allow them in side yards, but if you allow a parking pad in a side yard, there really isn't a reason why you couldn't connect that to a driveway in most cases. So having it in the rear yard keeps it behind the building, less visible. Again, those instances where you're probably not going to use it every day. This might be storing a boat that doesn't go. Again, we want people to maintain this, so we don't want this to be an everyday parking pad. This is an occasional parking pad. And then we're also recommending a 5-foot setback from all property lines. So they would have to have landscaping or grass along their property lines and not pave their entire backyard, in other words. Commercial use, we wanted to add that parking pads in residentially zoned or used property shall not be used for commercial purposes for the storage of commercial vehicles or equipment other than home occupations which are allowed by Chapter 156. As far as the access route, we're suggesting just saying that it shall be maintained with vegetation establishment without ruts. Wear marks from tire tracks that are bare from vegetation shall not be allowed. So that's bringing it down from, I think previously we talked about depth of rut or number of times you use it a year. So we kind of made that a little bit more broad. We also added a language in there that any parking pad placed within an easement, if allowed, shall be on property owner's sole risk, financial obligation, and maintenance responsibility. In other words, if the city would have a sanitary sewer or a storm sewer through the property, or Heart of Iowa, or Mediacom, Metronet, IMON, any of those companies have an easement that have utilities in their backyard. If they need access to them, it's at your own risk. If they dig them up, it's still your guys' responsibility to replace it. I don't think it's fair to have a private utility company responsible for the cost of replacing improvements on top of an easement when the easement was previously given. And so those are the parameters we wanted to bring to your guys' option for future discussion.
Heather, as you gave the examples, A, yes, I'm okay with that. B, no. C, yes. And D, no. I'm good with the 324 square foot. The other question I have is commercial vehicles. In Ward 1, we have an awful lot of concrete contractors, electricians, all those kind of guys that have work trucks. Would those be allowed to be able to park on there?
If they're using it every day, we don't want them on the parking pads because they need to be moving them daily. The parking pad in 10 is not for daily use. It's for storage of equipment and vehicles that are infrequent in use. Otherwise, we would require it be using a certified or legal drive in accordance with our ordinance.
Okay. The other question that I have is when you go to what the material is, concrete, asphalt, or pavers, that gets pretty restricted for people without a big income. I mean, you might be able to afford the boat, but you can't afford the concrete to park it on. You know what I mean? And so I myself think that gravel is okay to have a parking pad.
It's up for council discussion.
Yeah, I disagree with you, Mike. I was the one who kind of created this whole thing, I guess. My reason for wanting to do this is, as we can see from the pictures, people store stuff in their backyard. I want to give people a way to legally and cleanly do that, so you don't have to go weed whack your boat if you don't go fishing for a while. So I'm fine with the 324 square feet as well. And John, maybe you can talk. I know I talked to Greg, and there had also been some discussion of making sure that any vehicles stored there were licensed and insured by the property owner. So you can't have your buddy's motorhome sitting behind your house. It actually has to be your motorhome. I think I'd be interested in adding that to this ordinance too, that it has to be your property. But other than that, thank you for doing this. I think it looks good.
Anyone else?
May I?
You may.
So my only feedback initially looking at this, I appreciate the deep dive and the analysis on multiple different approaches. I would like to see this be like an accessory structure or a parking pad. I mean, we limit the square footage of accessory structures, and then if we allow this to follow 388 square feet, I mean, in theory, people may not have a backyard anymore. So I think there needs to be a consideration or a calculation that it can't be both.
Your Honor, may I?
Sure.
Barry brings up a good point. I like that. Because we limit them to 1,000 square feet accessory building, right, in residential area?
That would be the maximum for a half an acre lot, but it's also a calculation based on 30% of the rear yard. So it's the larger of the two, or sorry, the smaller of the two.
So may I ask Councilman Kell to clarify? So would you want this pad to be part of that, it's and/or part of that calculation?
Yes, that would be my intent. You're allowed hypothetically 1,000 square feet for whatever, an accessory structure or a parking pad. You're not allowed 1,000 square feet for each.
I could see that in smaller yard sizes, but for people with acreages, I don't know that that is as important.
Sorry, but you said it's a percentage of the lot size. The 1,000 is for the half acre lot, right?
1,000 maximum floor area is for a half an acre or less. For example, a 1 to 5 acre parcel, the maximum floor area for an accessory structure is 3,000 square feet or 30% of the rear yard. So again, it's a maximum, but it's also capped at the 30% level.
One more thing, Your Honor. Personally, I see where everybody's going with this, and all I want to say is I will vote for whatever, whatever the consensus is. I just want to make sure it's enforceable, that we're not doing something that's not going to get enforced. So that's all, the only caveat I put on this is I'm tired, especially in my ward where I live, the calls I get about vehicles in yards. I want the enforcement to happen. So whatever we do, I'm okay with it as long as it's enforced. Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, may I?
Sure.
Heather, in figure 1, that boat on that right side lot, is that legal there? Just
No, not right now.
Okay, so there are, community members, homeowners that have boats and, and going back to the gravel comment from Councilor Lottie Hoff, I think that if it gets resold one day, then and the new homeowner can take out the gravel and plant grass or like have it, be a plain yard again. But when putting a concrete pad, it's like it's going to be on there for a while. So yeah, I think for the smaller lots, I think that gravel could be an option just because then you can remove it. But then going back to Councilor Thompson, that if, would it be enforceable, if like this boat that's there, have they, gotten a note that they shouldn't have that boat there? So, and then I was thinking, sometimes, when you're in your yard, I mean, do you want to see a boat? Do you want to see a motor home or a RV or something in the back? And it's like, okay, you're sitting here enjoying time with your family, and then there's like a boat right there, in the next lot. So, so then with fences, what is the rule on fences?
There are 6 foot height fence allowance in rear yards of residential yards.
Okay, so 6 foot. So that could cover, okay. Okay, I think that was it. Thank you.
My comment about the gravel is I know if I'm driving up Ninth Street, there are several places where it's hard to tell if it was gravel or not, how much gravel is there. That's where enforcement becomes a real problem for you and anybody else who's going to enforce this. So
We do get questions from time to
Even on my drive home
time.
tonight, I'll go past
Yeah.
a couple of places where they're probably illegal, but they put a little gravel down. And so I know I don't have a vote, but I do have a preference on that one against gravel. Anybody else up here? Any public comment on this one?
One more thing, Your Honor.
Sure.
May I?
Yeah.
Heather,
You go ahead.
Thank you, Linda. Heather, would you support, bringing up the question of a fence, would you support that we tack on, if anybody puts a parking pad in their backyard, they're required to put a 6-foot-high privacy fence so the neighbors won't see the boat in the backyard?
I don't know that the Public Works Director should have a say or opinion in that.
No comment.
Are you running for office?
You read that children's book about the right to remain silent. Yeah.
Linda Clark, 306 South 2nd Avenue. And there are many issues. The first one is each property now in Marshalltown are not unique in size. Now, there are grandfathered properties, I would feel. Like next door to me, it is a fourplex rental property. It's a lot that's a half lot, and the backyard is all gravel, and they mow it. And I do have gravel in my driveway. It does pack down. There might be some grass coming up, but I can take care of it. And I think we're getting to the place that we are restricting a lot of people. Now, new people coming in to be buying all of these properties that are going to be affordable housing. Put the restrictions on them. But some of us that have owned property here in the community for a long time and have paid taxes, and I don't have a boat, but if I had one, it would be licensed and it would be being used seasonally. But I think we're starting to restrict a little bit too much. And as you've heard tonight, we have a lot of poverty in this city. I wasn't aware how much it really was until the presentation earlier. But thank God, literally, I've been able to have food. I am not food challenged, as you can tell. But no, we have to start looking at some of these things. I think we're just starting to restrict a little bit too much of things. Everybody wants everything brand new. Oh, wouldn't we all love to have a brand new facility? No, my needs come first, and that's eating. So thank you for your time.
My name's Jimmy Lee Lant. I live 610 North 4th Avenue. I got a problem with this. I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago when Raymond Snyder was on here and Michelle Sponberger, she was here, and I tried to apply for a building permit to add on my garage 10 to 12 feet, and they denied me. I tried to do it 2 times. They denied me. They come down and looked at my property, measured it all out, how much grassy area I'd have. What she's saying now, I would fit in that situation. So are you going to give me a permit to add on to my garage? And another thing is, who's going to come out here and measure this, make sure there's enough grassy area to perform this, putting these pads down? And another thing is, I can take any of you right now, I can show you 3 pieces of property in this town that do have no grass on their property. It's just all concrete and it's all buildings. So why was I denied a building permit?
Anyone else?
Your Honor, I'll make a motion. I would like to proceed as outlined by staff with 324 square feet. I would also like to put in the licensing and titling requirements that it is of the owner or an occupant of the property. So if somebody's renting a house that happens to have one of these.
Is there a second on that motion?
Are you okay with gravel?
Second, going once? Going
Yeah, I'll second that, Your Honor.
Okay. Let's call the roll.
Kell?
No.
Bodyhoff?
No.
Mitchell?
No.
Schneider?
No.
Thompson?
I'm going to say yes.
Why could I have predicted that?
No.
Okay. Anybody else wish to make a motion?
I'll take a shot, Your Honor.
Okay.
I'll do this, your B recommendation here at the 324 square feet, but I'll throw in that, the Kell amendment, that it's part of the, the backyard structure and/or pads. And I'll also, just to see how this flies, we're going to be here all night trying different variations of this, that they're required to put a 6-foot-high privacy fence around the whole thing. That's my motion.
I need a second to this one.
Your Honor, I got to.
I'll give another 5 seconds for a second. Okay, fails for a second. Anybody else want to take a shot at this?
Could I ask a question for some clarification based on what Barry
Why
was
not?
talking about?
Why not?
Are you talking either an accessory building or the pad, or a combination that was no greater than 3,000 square feet? Because I think I could get on board with that. Or whatever it says in the code, 30%.
Yeah, a combination no greater than what's outlined.
Okay, I think that's okay. I'll try it again. I'd like to make the same motion I made earlier, except for the Kell amendment of no greater than what's defined there in code between the two.
I'm so confused.
Second that.
I hope the clerk got that. What's our motion?
Heather got it.
Heather, what's our motion?
Our motion would be to allow a parking pad no greater than 324 square feet for the pad, or a maximum of what's allowed by the accessory table in Chapter 156, which would be Table 156.C.007-1, in combination of the accessory structure and parking pad. Material would be concrete, asphalt, or solid bricks and pavers. Setback, separation, commercial use, access route, easements as discussed previously, and adding licensed by the owner or occupant of the property.
Well, I guess I had that. Okay, so that's the motion.
Now we're no gravel, right?
Is there a second?
Second that one again, Your Honor.
Okay. Well, let's call the roll.
Mitchell already seconded
Oh,
that.
sorry.
Fonseca?
No.
Kell?
Yes.
Bodyhoff?
No.
Mitchell?
Yes.
Schneider?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
It carried. Staff has some direction.
Yes, so we will bring Chapter 72 back as a request to untable the first reading as amended, as discussed here. I also want to let you guys know that we've also had one other 72 chapter item come up that I'll be bringing forth as part of that first amendment. When we opened up to allow parking in downtown parking lots to 72 hours, we did not restrict that from commercial vehicles, business vehicles, then parking overnight in the downtown lots, and we've been having some issues with that. So we're going to restrict that and bring that back at the same time.
Got it. Okay. And our last item to discuss, Chapter 77, parking schedules, restricted downtown parking.
I believe this one is mine too, Heather Thomas, Public Works. This is a follow-up to the discussion we had related to the restricted downtown parking, specifically related to the 2:30 to 5:30 on the downtown streets. We were directed by council last meeting to look at a permit exemption process, program, to define what that might mean if we would allow an exemption of that time. In your council packets in the memo, I have outlined one potential. I would reiterate that I think from a city staff perspective, I think we still lean to the preference of keeping it as is with no exemption permits. But if there is a request to provide exemption permits downtown, we've come up with the following. An exemption parking permit may be requested for an individual residing in a restricted parking from 2:30 to 5:30 a.m. area without private parking on their property, public parking access immediately adjoining or directly across an alley or street, This exemption would be allowed for parking between the hours of 2:30 to 5:30 a.m. only on First Street, Second Street, First Ave, and Second Ave, and I'll bring up a photo of downtown here shortly. Proof of residence is required to be issued a permit by the city clerk. The permit must be properly displayed on the bottom corner of the rear driver's side windshield, and the exemption is not valid when the snow ordinance is in effect. So we would be recommending, if this passes, that all of these streets be added to the snow ordinance route. So with that, I'll bring up this map. All of the streets that are shown in a magenta or a green colored are currently the streets that are part of that 2:30 to 5:30 restriction. The magenta streets of State Street, Main Street, and Church Street, we would not allow parking exemption permits for, including Center Street. Some of the reason there is when you look at the availability of public parking lots in a well-lit area to get from building to building, they have them. Also, city staff spend about 400 hours a year doing holiday lights, wreaths, banners, and those kind of things that are currently located on Main Street and Center Street. Again, we come in at 2 o'clock in the morning to do those activities, so we'd like to keep those streets clear. The 4 streets that we talked about potentially allowing this exemption permit are those in green, again, Second Street, First Ave, and Second Ave. And with that, I will open it up for questions.
Okay, let's start up here. Anybody up here?
I mean, we do have permit parking now downtown, Alicia.
There is some current language in the code that allows for an exemption. However, as staff reviewed it, we do feel like the language needs to be expanded on who that should be issued to.
I had the occasion I've talked to a couple building owners downtown, a couple business owners, and some other people that are interested in it. And they have a lot of misgivings about this. And I was somewhat surprised. They can see how it could be abused quite a bit and create more of a burden where it would be nice if everybody played by the rules, but obviously people don't at times. So I'm withdrawing any support for something like this.
Could you elaborate on what their concerns are if it's parking on the streets and the Avs? I mean, do they think people are just going to park in front of their business all the time, or what's the issue?
I think the permits could be given from person to person, as you might not be. If I have somebody over and they could be handed over, I think also having, once people start seeing cars parked there between 2 and 5, a lot of people aren't going to know that they're permitted, so they're just going to go ahead and park there. Now we got another problem and the police trying to police these areas and keep them safe and everything like that. It has the potential of turning into a mess.
Your Honor, may I make a comment?
You may.
Just to clarify, the current permits that are issued are permanent stickers. They would have to be affixed to the vehicle. We don't give out any visitor passes. This code doesn't currently allow for it. So you wouldn't be able to pass a permit to anyone for this certain exemption. But however, if someone were to be given this exemption, essentially, the 3-hour parking restrictions are done at 6 p.m. So somebody could park there at 6 p.m. essentially until 11 a.m. the next day on Main Street.
Yeah,
if you say your tires were marked at 8 o'clock when the 3-hour restriction starts.
And they could actually park there even sooner. They could probably park there at 3:15 because the restrictions go off at 6 p.m. So I think one of the concerns is somebody could park there from 3:15 in the afternoon until almost at 11 o'clock the next morning.
Your Honor, may I?
Sure.
Heather, so the green, you're saying that the 2:30 to 5:30 would be taken off?
For those that have the exemption permit.
Okay. and those that have the exemption permit would be individuals who are renting down there, tenants, or who would it mostly be?
Yep, residential unit holders, the people that live downtown within this area. However, if that property has parking, private parking, whether it's on-site or, a private parking lot next door, they would not be eligible to apply for the permit. Also, if their current building has direct access to one of the public parking lots, and whether it's across the street or through an alley, but it's directly across, they would also not be allowed to apply for an exemption permit.
Your Honor, if I may. So what you just described, in other words, there is nobody downtown that would be eligible for a parking permit then, because everybody would have access to a parking lot across from an alley through their back door.
In my head, I think I could think of 5 properties that have upper story living that would potentially meet the criteria. The individual that came and spoke at a council meeting, the back portion of their property is not immediately adjacent to the parking lot. It is to an alley, and the parking lot is not on the direct other side of the alley, and they currently have no parking on site, so they would be one of them that would be the 5 that I mentioned. And like I said, I think there's a couple others that may have upper story living that I'm just not aware of.
So if you can think of 5, then there's no problem with 5 cars sitting there from 3:15 in the afternoon until 11 o'clock the next morning. We have cars sitting longer, business owners downtown during the day that aren't getting ticketed that sit longer than that.
5 properties as opposed to 5 units. So there could be potential that some of these properties have multiple units upstairs that could be issued multiple exemption permits. When we put ordinances in place, it's important to look at long-term development of downtown. I think there are some other properties downtown that would also meet this criteria if they were redeveloped with upper story.
And this is where I struggle. We are incentivizing downtown living, but they can't park anywhere close to their house. All of us that don't live downtown, we can park in our driveway, or in my case, in front of my house. So I don't understand the lack of rationale that these people should, if we give them incentives to have downtown living, and then we take away the ability to park in front of your house, I just don't understand that.
Heather, could you please list out what the five properties are around?
Okay, let me see if I can do this. First of all, I'm not sure if it's appropriate or not because we don't make ordinances on a single property. But I do believe there are several properties in the block between First Ave and Center. I believe I'm aware of 2 businesses that have upper story rental units, housing units in the block of Center to First Street. I'm aware of at least 1, possibly 2 in that block, and I believe there is also a proposed upper story that does not have direct access in the block from First Ave to Second Ave. And again, this is not my area of community development and housing, so I may be off on that number. I just walked and tried to think which ones I was pretty sure had upper story.
Thank you, Heather. And I have lived downtown, and I think that my rental had its own parking lot, but for individuals, I don't think it's going to be like 100 people. It's only going to be a certain number of individuals, and they would apply with the city, right, and for the permit, and then. So I think this is a good idea for the tenants to have, be able to look at their car, be able to walk, their groceries, because. If you're going from the parking lots into your rental, it's a ways. So I think when you're living down there and your car is closer, especially when you have children, and I had my 5-month-old, so I think that this would work. I think for those individuals.
Your Honor. I think this is a step in the right direction. I mean, it is a small subsection of the people that do live downtown that need this access. Mike, I hear your comment that, you know, other people may see cars parked there overnight and think, oh, you can park here overnight. Is there going to be updated signage saying permit parking only or anything like that? Do we anticipate that need? I mean, that could maybe help clear up some of that confusion.
I think the only way we could do that is on those 8 blocks that this would be allowed. The sign that says no parking between 2:30 to 5:30 says without permit or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we'd need that, but I'd like to make the motion that we ask city staff to bring this back as a resolution on a future agenda.
Is there a second?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. I haven't opened it up to the public yet.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we had to talk for, it's late.
No, I say since we're going to put something to a vote, let's open to the public.
So Deb Millizer, Director of the Marshalltown Central Business District, 34 West Main. I want to say that I am not opposed to this. I would say that I was opposed to it initially, thinking of people parking along Main Street and not moving their vehicles because that can become a true issue. I do have some reservations about this model, especially right before reconstruction, and how premium those parking spaces are going to be while reconstruction is going on Main Street and people needing to park on those side streets to walk up to get to Main Street. So those 5 to 10, maybe 15 parking spots are going to be essential during reconstruction on those side streets. So that's a concern that I have. But also another concern that I have that is related to this, this was brought up and I think moved to this, was the feeling of unsafe in some locations in the downtown and parking in that parking lot behind the city center. I think it's parking lot J maybe, I may not have that right. And there was a talk of lighting and all of that. I think that the issue kind of expands beyond that. I've had a few conversations and so my office for a long time, and I'm trying to make it quick because I know we've been here a long time. My office was in the city center building for 4 years before I moved to this, where the chamber is located now at 34 West Main Street. I walked out into that parking lot many, many times when it was dark, many times during the day. And there were, we talked about homelessness earlier tonight, or people without shelter. There was a lot that could make you feel, even though they may be perfectly safe, it can make you feel unsafe. I encountered people that frequented the sheriff's office back there in that alleyway, in that area. And then I also noticed, because I was a social worker for almost 12 years in Marshalltown, and a lot of my clients were in the Grant Street area, which bleeds over into Main Street. And it's late, and so my words aren't coming to me. I'm tired, but I think we have issues beyond the parking as far as like feeling safe. I think it has to do with lighting and the quality of life that people in that area are able to experience, the amenities that we offer in that area. I know that the nuisance committee has talked about rental properties over there that aren't being monitored. You know, we know that part of the community has less resources available to them, but I think that I'm going to say element as in the overall, I don't mean this negative towards anybody or any demographic, but that area of the community needs some attention beyond lighting. It needs more things going on there so people do feel safe, you know, like the food truck pilot program that was in that neighborhood. And I was told several times, well, we just don't feel safe over here either. I think we need to add more over there. We need to pay attention over there. People are a product of their environment, and they have I'm saying I don't mean to generalize, but because I'm speaking from my experience as a social worker in that area, and I spent 8 years in that area, they don't see the future. They have a poverty mentality, a way to do a better way to live. And so I'm thankful for the impact program. I think that was an awesome program. thankful for the caseworkers, and I'm glad that you explained earlier to the public what, working with your caseworker and working on your goals, all of those things need to happen. So I think this is a bigger issue than parking in the downtown as far as feeling safe and we're the lighted area. I think we need to expand it a little bit more. I don't want to go, I know this is late, so I'm going to finish my thought here. But I think if we're going to have permit parking in the downtown, I think this model is pretty good, but I don't like it before reconstruction.
Thank you.
Doris Kinnick, 2020 Catalina Place. I'm going to make this really short. Julie was up here a couple of sessions ago, and basically what it was for her is that it was an emergency thing. And so that was the reason why she was even there to help one of her tenants. If there's a way that people who actually have buildings downtown can have those permits, then I think it would be an easier thing. And I don't think it's going to be anything that's going to be like people parking, on Main Street all the time or anything. I think it's just, in this case, at least for her, it was just a bat in a tenant's room. So, thank you.
Anyone else? I think we were at a motion and a second. Well, let's call the roll.
Mitchell?
Yes.
Schneider?
Yes.
Thompson?
Yes.
Fonseca? Yes. Kell?
No.
Bodyhoff?
No.
Okay. I think that if I counted right, that carried. And with that, I see Joel Oliva's here. I give a shout out to Sue Cahill, a candidate. Joel's going to be on the ballot too, so if you haven't met him, I invite you to meet him there. We are adjourned at 7:40. Thanks for coming.